The 1970s killed the muscle car. Everyone knows that. Smog regulations, insurance rates, oil embargoes. The decade that turned 450 horsepower beasts into 180 horsepower shadow puppets. But here's what they don't tell you. Before the curtain dropped completely, American manufacturers built some of the fastest quarter-mile monsters ever to leave a factory floor. We're talking about the cars that defined the absolute peak of straight-line performance. The machines that set records that wouldn't be touched for decades. These are the 10 fastest 1970s muscle cars over the quarter mile, and the stories behind the numbers that still stand today. Number 10 on our countdown runs the quarter in 13.9 seconds at 103 miles per hour, and it's a car most people have never heard of, the 1970 Buick GSX Stage 1. While everyone was watching the Chevelle and the GTO, Buick's engineers were stuffing a 455 cubic inch torque monster under the hood of their mid-size platform. This wasn't your grandfather's Buick. The Stage 1 package added a hotter cam, better heads, and carburation that could actually feed that massive displacement. But the real secret was torque. 510 pound-feet at just 2,800 RPM. That's more twist than a Hemi, and it hits so low in the rev range you could launch this thing off idle and still smoke the tires through first gear. Car and Driver tested one in April 1970 and couldn't believe what they were seeing. Their test car ran consistent 13.9 seconds all day long with street tires and pump gas. The quarter-mile trap speed of 103 told the real story. This thing was still accelerating hard at the finish line. Buick only built 678 GSX models in 1970, and most people walked right past them at the dealership looking for the flashier Pontiac down the hall. Big mistake. Number 9 drops into the 13.7 second range, and it's wearing a bow tie. The 1970 Chevrolet Monte Carlo SS 454. Now, most people think of the Monte Carlo as a personal luxury cruiser, and they're not wrong, except when you ordered the LS6 454 cubic inch big block. Suddenly, that luxury coupe had 360 horsepower and 500 pound-feet of torque trying to twist a 3,800 pound body through the quarter mile. Motor Trend got their hands on one in September 1970 and ran it to a 13.7 at 104 miles per hour. What made this car special wasn't just the straight-line speed. It was the combination of performance and refinement. You could run 13 seconds at the strip on Saturday, then drive to work Monday morning in air-conditioned comfort with your arm resting on a leather-covered center console. Chevrolet sold over 3,800 Monte Carlo SS 454s in 1970, making it one of the more successful sleepers of the muscle car era. At number 8, we're breaking into the 13.5 second zone with a car that proved Plymouth hadn't forgotten how to build street fighters. The 1971 Plymouth GTX 440+6. The name tells you everything. 440 cubic inches feeding through 3 two-barrel carburetors. 6 barrels of fury hiding under a shaker hood that literally moved with the engine. Hot Rod magazine tested this combination in March 1971 and clicked off a 13.5 at 105 miles per hour. But here's the thing about the 440+6. It was all about mid-range punch. Those 3 carbs were progressive. Cruise on the center carb, stand on it, and the outboards opened up like floodgates. The result was a torque curve that looked like a plateau from 3,000 to 5,000 RPM. You didn't have to rev this engine to make power. You just pointed it and held on. Production numbers were surprisingly low for such a potent package. Plymouth only built around 135 GTX models with the 440+6 in 1971. The insurance companies were already tightening the noose, and buyers were starting to look at smaller engines with lower premiums. Number 7 takes us into Oldsmobile territory with a 13.4 second blast from a car wearing the most deceptive badge in Detroit, the 1970 Oldsmobile 442W30. That 442 designation originally meant 4-barrel carb, 4-speed transmission, dual exhausts. By 1970, it just meant Oldsmobile's mid-size muscle car. But add the W30 package and you got something special. A 455 cubic inch V8 with factory blueprinted internals, hand-selected rods, a hotter cam, and an aluminum intake manifold that saved 25 pounds right over the front axle. Car Life magazine tested one in June 1970 and recorded a 13.4 at 105 miles per hour. The W30 was all about consistency. It would run that number all day long, back to back, without breaking a sweat. Oldsmobile built just over 2,944 twos with the W30 package in 1970, and most of them saw serious strip time. These weren't trailer queens. They were purpose-built to run hard and run often. Sliding into number 6 at 13.3 seconds is the car that made Ford's Cleveland engine famous, the 1971 Ford Mustang Boss 351. Now, the Boss 429 gets all the glory, but the Boss 351 was actually quicker in the quarter mile. Ford's 351 Cleveland engine with the Boss treatment meant 4-bolt mains, forged internals, massive ports in the heads, and a 750 cubic feet per minute Autolite carburetor that could feed those ports properly. Motor Trend's test in January 1971 showed 13.3 at 107 miles per hour with the close ratio 4-speed. That 107 trap speed is the key. This engine made power everywhere. Unlike the big blocks that were all about low-end torque, the Boss 351 would pull hard all the way to 6,000 RPM. Ford only built about 1,800 Boss 351 Mustangs for 1971, making it one of the rarer Boss variants. Most ended up at drag strips, which explains why clean survivors are nearly impossible to find today. At number 5, we're hitting the magic 13 flat barrier with a car that proved Pontiac still knew how to build Ram air monsters. The 1970 Pontiac GTO Judge Ram Air 4. The Judge was Pontiac's answer to the Roadrunner, a stripped-down muscle car with cartoon graphics and serious hardware under the hood. But option the Ram Air 4 engine and you got something genuinely special. 370 advertised horsepower from 400 cubic inches, though everyone knew the real number was closer to 420. Superstock and Drag Illustrated tested one in April 1970 and ran a 13.0 flat at 109 miles per hour. That trap speed tells you this engine was severely underrated. The Ram Air 4 used round port heads, a tunnel port design borrowed from racing, and a camshaft profile that made this thing sound like it wanted to kill you. Pontiac only built 168 Judge hardtops with the Ram Air 4 in 1970. Partly because of cost, partly because insurance companies were starting to refuse coverage on anything with Ram Air in the name. Number 4 takes us into the 12-second zone with one of the most brutal cars ever sold through a dealership. The 1970 Buick Grand Sport Stage 2. We talked about the Stage 1 earlier, but the Stage 2 took things to another level entirely. Buick's engineers went deeper into the 455 cubic inch V8, adding wilder camshafts, better breathing, and stronger valve springs. The result was a car that could run 12.9 seconds at 110 miles per hour right off the dealer lot. Carcraft magazine tested one in August 1970, and their first reaction was disbelief. A Buick shouldn't be this fast, but there it was, consistent 12.9-second passes with street tires and pump gas. The Stage 2 made somewhere north of 400 horsepower, though Buick would never officially confirm the number. They built fewer than 100 Stage 2 cars in 1970, and most of them went straight to serious racers who knew what they had. The bronze medal goes to number 3, and it's the car that defined Plymouth's approach to quarter-mile domination. The 1970 Plymouth Hemi Cuda. The E-body platform with the 426 Hemi was a combination that made insurance agents break out in hives. Chrysler's Hemi engine in 1970 was making closer to 450 horsepower in real-world testing, not the advertised 425. Dual quads, massive ports, hemispherical combustion chambers that squeezed every drop of power from pump gas. Hot Rod magazine tested one in July 1970 and clicked off 12.8 seconds at 112 miles per hour. That 112 trap speed is the fastest we've seen so far. This car was absolutely flying at the finish line. Plymouth only built 652 Hemi Cudas in 1970, and at over $4,000 in 1970 money, most buyers went with the cheaper 446 pack instead. Today, a real Hemi Cuda can sell for 7 figures at auction. Number 2 is the car that made Chevrolet fans lose their minds in 1970. the Chevelle LS6 SS 454. Chevrolet rated this engine at 450 horsepower, making it the highest factory-rated engine of the muscle car era. But chassis dyno testing decades later proved the LS6 was making closer to 500 horsepower at the flywheel. This was Chevrolet's answer to the Hemi, an all-aluminum intake manifold, rectangular port heads, a solid lifter camshaft, and an 800 cubic feet per minute Holley carburetor that could actually feed all 454 cubic inches. Car and Driver tested one in March 1970 and recorded 12.6 seconds at 113 miles per hour. That's flying for a street-legal car in 1970. The LS6 would pull hard from idle to 6,000 RPM without a flat spot anywhere in the curve. Chevrolet built 4,475 LS6 Chevelle in 1970, but the writing was on the wall. Insurance companies were already making these cars nearly impossible to insure for anyone under 30. Which brings us to number 1, the fastest production muscle car of the 1970s over the quarter mile. And it's not what most people expect. The 1971 Plymouth Hemi Cuda with the air grabber hood and 4.10 gears ran 12.3 seconds at 115 miles per hour in Superstock magazine's testing from March 1971. This was the absolute peak. The fastest combination of engine, transmission, gearing, and platform that Detroit would produce before everything changed. The 1971 Hemi was actually making more power than the 1970 version, even though the compression ratio dropped slightly to 10.2 to 1 to meet new emission standards. Better breathing, better tuning, and Chrysler engineers who knew this was the last year for the Hemi in street cars. Plymouth only built 108 Hemi Cudas in 1971, the rarest of the rare. Most were ordered with the close ratio 4-speed and the tallest rear gearing available, which maximized quarter-mile performance. These 10 cars represented the absolute pinnacle of straight-line performance in the 1970s, the fastest factory muscle cars ever built before emissions regulations and insurance rates killed the golden age. From the 13.9-second Buick GSX to the 12.3-second Hemi Cuda, these were the machines that defined what was possible when American engineers focused purely on going fast in a straight line. Most of them were built in 1970 or early 1971 before the horsepower wars ended abruptly. Within 2 years, these same model names would be wearing 190 horsepower engines and struggling to break 16 seconds in the quarter mile. But for this brief moment, Detroit built the fastest street cars the world had ever seen, and these are the numbers that prove it.